We're just the only one today. That's just great. Now you guys are behaving back as Africans, because now I said good morning, and everybody's like, good morning, man. So in the spirit of this good morningness and activity, I will try that again. Good morning, my colleagues. Good morning. Okay, thank you. You're lucky I didn't say you should say my name as well. But yes, thank you all for being here. It's a privilege and honor for me to be here. My name is Lawrence Ogunsonia. I will say that again, Ogunsonia, but you can just stick to the Lawrence aspect. Okay. And I am the academic leader for the Department of Architecture in the School of the Built Environment and Development Studies here at UKZN. I'm a professional, not just an architect. I'm an academic. I'm a professional architect as well, and I also deal with different aspects of the built environment in housing and also in town and regional planning. So it is safe to say that you're in good hands this morning to take you to a place where you've never been before. And I'm not alone on this quest, if I may add. I have 3, or should I say 4, esteemed members in my panel. Some are working virtually, or should we say in spirit. And we do have some here also physically. And in people in that spirit of what we call being hybrid nowadays, because that word zings a lot when we talk about connecting. So even though the theme is reconnection after being disconnected, we are hybrided this morning. So I would like to just introduce you all to this esteemed and extraordinary panel that we have this morning. The pressure is on because, you know, we are the first to go after such a wonderful speech by our executives here. And I will say we are the alpha team, because as we set the pace, everybody has to follow what we do. Okay, so let's start with the physical. I would introduce this panel. The first person that I do have here, which is I wouldn't call him my partner in crime, but I'll say my partner on this quest, is Mr. Mahlubi. No, sorry, that's not him. I was just testing you guys' alerts this morning. Believe me, this is how I do in my classes. It's nice to make you people laugh. I love this. No one said this would be great. Okay. Yes, sorry, as I was saying, the person that is here with me is Mr. Pindiwe Mbele. He is the Director of Home Affairs in the immigration part of which is responsible for the stakeholders of relationship management. Oh, thank you. Oh, great. Relationship management. And he is also the department which deals with corporate entities, corporate employees, and the institution of higher learning regarding temporary residences, visa matters. And he's also involved in advising and assessing corporate employers who have the intention of positively contributing to South Africa's economic growth and through the employment that is needed through foreign labor and the entry of exceptional skills of qualified people and their promotion of tourism. He is designated, this corporate climates division which he runs, it's dedicated to making sure that there's facilitation in application of visas, permanent residencies, which are now issued expeditiously on the basis of to simplify procedures and objectives that are dealing with issues of international matters within institution and also within the city of Durban. So it's great to have you here, and we will be hoping to listen to you very soon. But let me just introduce the other people. I believe the other people are online, if I am correct, and we're still expecting one more person. The lady among our panel is Dr. Corinne Lengsfeld. I believe she's online, but I'll just introduce her to her. She serves as a Senior Vice Provost of Research for Graduate Education in the University of Denver. And as the Chief Research Officer there, she is the primary advocate of the university's research mission, and she's charged with understanding and leading and enhancing all forms of scholarship linked to foster professional growth in the faculty. And that involves also advancing the knowledge and enriching student experience within the university's visibility. And because of this position she oversees internal and external management grants and contracts, research and integrity, intellectual property and technological transfer, with multidisciplinary research within different universities linked to the University of Denver. So that is Dr. Corinne Lengsfeld. The other person joining us, which I started off with, is Mr. Mahlubi Mabizela. He will also be joining us online. He is the Chief Director, University Policy for Development Studies, Development Support in the Department of Higher Education and Training. He is the Chief Director responsible for development and implementation of various policies in higher education management and reporting on higher education research and outputs. That is a mouthful. But the administration and the regulation of also private higher education institutions. And last and definitely not the least is going to be a Mr. Eric Apelgren, who is currently responsible for the international government relations in the eThekwini Municipality. And he deals with all relationships dealing with the city and international matters based on the municipality engagement, which is part of policy formulation, international donor relations, liaisons, and UN agencies, and other multilateral organization and accreditation in South Africa. So that is really your panel this morning. And I would like to start with Mr. Or are we ready to go online first? Okay, fine. I would like to start with our doctor. Oh boy, is that me? Oh, I can see myself. Mom, I'm on TV. Maybe I should do the British wave. Well, we would like to start with Dr. Corinne Lengsfeld. And I know we're running out of time, so I have been informed by our technical crew that you will only be given about 5 to 8 minutes to do your talk. And if you do not meet it within that time, I'm informed they would shut you out and mute you. And for us which are here, they will literally go with the load shedding exercise by cutting the power and kicking us out. So please, let us try and keep to time. And please, so Dr. Corinne Lengsfeld, let us just give her a round of applause as she starts.
I appreciate this. So I have just a prepared presentation for everybody. We have just a second. What I wanted to talk about was university to university relationships and how they really are the power of driving. I think that what we have done is an amazing job, as our keynote speaker said, in COVID, but really through research between institution to institution, we can be the power to move forward. I see research and partnerships as ways that completely transform the student experience inside and outside the classroom, but they are the power in which we improve public good, both in our regions, in our schools, but also across the globe. I look at that as how we engage the smartest minds around the nations and drive them into the public good activities. At the University of Denver, we have harnessed partnerships and collaboration in order to drive our growth over the years. This is an indication of our research volume over time. We've nearly 2 times doubled in the last 10 years, both in terms of the number of faculty participating in funded research, but also the number of dollars coming into the institution. I've put some very specific timelines on this chart in which show you when partnership correlated with significant growth. One of the first things we do is an internal seed funding program, which is really important at the beginning to sort of drive improvements. But you'll notice that we begin to pay more for students, which is really important. We develop international partnerships that actually begin the climb. And then we do multidisciplinary partnerships that actually accelerate and advance. The impact that these people have had in a number of different places is beyond compare. We've got faculty at the University of Denver partnering with the UN in order to help Yemen think about peace and how to recover post-war in a peace era. 3 reports were published here and are the foundation for the peace process now under discussion. We have faculty partnering with the justice system within the United States to look at prison recidivism and using fine arts to build confidence and help people move beyond maybe their previous lives into ones that are much more successful. And we have partnered with the state of Colorado as well as the Center for Disease Control in order to begin to look at the nationwide surveillance of wastewater for infectious diseases. And our hope is to collaborate well beyond our borders. We've looked significantly at early childhood education, partnering with nations like Ireland and Australia and a number of other places in order to transform early childhood education. The impact of research is really important, but also it represents the pathway to student access. So on our campus, which is not huge, 13,000 students, 552 students last year were paid from external research grants, which gave them access to education they might not otherwise would have had access to. Year over year, $3 million is put into student tuition or salaries. 1 out of 5 students paid on campus are paid from research grants. And a total of 137 people on campus have their entire graduate tuition paid for, as well as a stipend in order to do research on external grants. These are powerful relationships. As we've done these relationships, as we've pushed forward, this has enhanced our recognition and our reputation, and I can say it's really put forth into our partnerships. This is a plot of the black shields are those R1 institutions in the United States, the top research institutions, and the sort of grayed out shields are those that are the R2 institutions. In 2015, DU was one of those in the sort of grayed out. But by leveraging our partnerships, internal funding, commitment to students, having a focus on public good and global impact, what we've been able to do is move across dramatically into the R1 space. And I just think this is the way that we move forward as partners. It's critical that partners build on our own legitimate success. We can't make up places of new collaboration. We must look upon what we are really good at and each one bring to the table what is our most important, most salient, best expertise to the table, and then work together as an entire group. I can't see a future in which we don't have strong partnerships. And I really, really think that this university-to-university partnerships is really important. And I appreciate being on this panel. I will finish up in my 5-minute time point and hand it off.
Thank you very much there, Dr. Lengsfeld. You did keep within the time. We appreciate you for that. And what I'm going to do is that I would prefer to have all our panels give them their short talks first. Then we can see if we can now have time to ask them questions. I hope that is in order and okay. Okay, the next person I want to introduce is actually here with us. As I said, it's the reconnection that we're talking about, and these things which have been mentioned by Professor Lengsfeld, is that these partnerships do exist. And they don't just exist in silos just within universities to universities in other countries, because when you come to this country, you have to deal with the laws of the land, the access that we have here. So we need to know how government, local government, and government parastatals or departments are actually assisting us and enhancing these partnerships that we do have with international entities. And that is where Mr. Mbele is going to talk to us on that level, especially from the Department of Home Affairs. So please help me welcome Mr. Mbele to come and talk a bit about that. Yes. Oh, you can stay there. Yes. Be comfortable. You can sit there. You're at home.
All right. Thank you very much, and good morning once again, colleagues. As you've already mentioned, I'm from the Department of Home Affairs, and one of our responsibilities as legislated is to support academic exchanges. So we have quite a big role in contributing to the work that the universities and institutions of higher learning do, in as far as encouraging that we should attract international students to come and study in institutions of South Africa. One of the first documents that we signed in 1997, it was signed by the then Minister Geraldine Fraser-Moleketi, is the protocol on education and training that we signed with our SADC partners. And, the main purpose of the document is that South Africa, in terms of the position that we hold on the continent, has a responsibility to contribute to the academic growth of the continent. And it does have some of the provisions in that document where, as South Africa, we even teach this to the Home Affairs officials that we deploy abroad to go and work in the missions, to say that we have a responsibility. If you look at that protocol, it even mentions that South Africans' universities should actually reserve a certain percentage of admissions to students coming from the SADC region. And I wonder how many universities are aware of that. It is something that we have agreed upon. And from our side as the Department of Home Affairs, we issue study visas for students that come to study in our institutions, but we also issue the work visas for international workers that come and work at the universities. We have a visa that we issue to postdocs that come and do research in South Africa. And, one of the proud achievements that I always speak about wherever I go is the fact that, that the highest and the top-rated mathematician in South Africa is actually a Cameroonian. Maybe most people do not know. Dr. or Professor Abdon Atangana, he's a mathematician or mathematics professor at the University of the Free State. He's now a permanent resident in South Africa. You were talking about partnerships, and one of the things that makes him the top mathematician, he's 219th ranked in the world and ranked number first in South Africa. Now take the population of the world and put him as a 219th mathematician in the world. He has been cited more than 14,300 times, meaning that there's people who have written about what he has written. And, every time that happens, it does not get credited to him as a Cameroonian. It gets credited to South Africa. So every time South Africa produces, or someone that has studied in South Africa or that is resident in South Africa produces or publishes an academic article or an academic document or a book and so forth, it gets credited to South Africa. So we actually have a benefit, and we have something to gain from having other country nationals residing in South Africa and actually studying and doing academic work in South Africa. So it is a role that we understand quite clearly, and we are always willing at all times to assist universities in attracting students to South Africa. I just read last week the Times University World Ranking, where I saw that some South African universities are still doing very well in terms of being ranked amongst the top universities in the world. And one of the criteria that is being used today is that universities get to score higher when they actually have a sizable amount or number of international students that they have in their institution, because then that gives gives the perception and the impression that that university is actually an international university, in the sense that it's not only South Africans that are studying in that university. So it is actually to our benefit at all times that in our quest to internationalize our institutions of learning, we really need to have these partnerships with other institutions of learning, but most importantly, facilitate the attraction of international students to South Africa. I'm sure that the student that comes from Germany that has studied here, when they go back, if they've had a good experience in KZN, they will always share it with those that are there. People will ask them, have you studied, how was it in KZN? And sometimes it's not only about what happens on campus, but outside of campus, the lifestyle and so forth. Did they like the country? How were we as the host as the people who had hosted them during their stay here. So, the internationalization of institution is not only the responsibilities of the university, but it is also the responsibility of us as citizens of the country, as government working in partnership with the institutions, and of South Africans in general. If we give a foreign national or an other country national a good and positive experience about life in South Africa, I'm definitely sure that they will encourage others to come and take residence in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. You see, we're doing very well with time. Yes, I see everybody is excited now. Quickly, as we move along, we're still in this same theme of how the government and local government enhances or supports internationalization within our different institutions. I would like to call on a person which works with policy in the Department of Higher Education and Training. He's also joining us online. So please, let's welcome okay, I just wanted to be sure. Please, let's welcome Mr. Mahlubi Mabizela. I need to be using my glasses now. In Mabizela, actually. Mabizela, sorry about that, please. Let us welcome him. Is he online?
Right. Good morning, colleagues. Thank you so much for having this session and having us to present to you. Am I audible clearly, Prof? Shall I continue?
Yes, you may, Chief Mabizela.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm also conscious of the time. I think the two speakers put pressure on me because they saved you some time. I wouldn't want to break that pattern. Yes, as I've been introduced, I'm from the Department of Higher Education and Training, and thank you again for having this session and having us here. Well, before I run out of time, there's just one thing I would like to say, certainly, and before I go through my slides here, is that as the government, as the Department of Higher Education and Training, we came up with a policy on internationalization of higher education in South Africa, and we had promised the system, or the higher education institutions in particular, that we will then come up with the implementation strategy and plan. And we were hoping that we would be having that by now, this time of the year. But unfortunately, we haven't managed to as yet. It's still going to be coming. And the delay is because of an empirical study that is done by AISA and in partnership with the British Council. And indeed, we made a contribution on the information we would like to see in that study, together with Universities South Africa. And the delay in that study has been caused by ethics clearances of the different institutions, because we want information from all the 26 universities. And only recently that I got an update on that, and there were still some ethic clearances from about 10 institutions still. Now, that says to me, we've got to have a strategy as the country when we require information from the institutions on how we go about this. I don't think for some studies we need all the 26 ethic clearances. I do think that maybe if we have some ethic clearance centrally for some studies, not all of them, and that we should then have that cleared centrally and then move on and gather the information that we require. I think it's of national interest if we go or we do things like that. Now, I've already said we did a policy and published it in 2020 in the middle of lockdown and the middle of the pandemic. And this is what we have as the purpose of the policy framework. I shall just focus on the last bullet there with sub bullets A, B, C, that the policy framework is anchored on mutual understanding approach which prioritizes traditional values of academic exchange, skilled migration approach, which derives value in the migration of highly skilled immigrants. And I think this follows what Mr. Mbele just said earlier. The capacity building approach, which believes in the exchange of knowledge and learning from others. Now, what we left out deliberately is that we are not seeing internationalization as the Department of Higher Education and Training, and indeed as government, as a money spinner of some kind. And that is what is being done by other countries, especially the so-called developed countries. What they are mainly interested in is what would these academic partnerships and exchanges would bring to their economy. And this is not what we are interested in South Africa, and indeed what we are expressing in this policy is that what we are interested in is the development of scholarship. A scholarship should be, and has always been intended to be. So this is what we want to promote as government. This is what we want to have in the strategy and the plan once we have developed that plan. And indeed, this is the kind of influence we would like to have at our institutions, especially on their policies. And when we developed this policy framework, we requested institutions to revise their policies, or those that didn't have policies to develop their own policies on the basis of the principles and the approach that is adopted in this policy framework. And then the policy framework is meant to cover only international engagements and not the local ones, but there's nothing stopping institutions when they enter into international engagements to bring along their fellow partners who would be the fellow institutions within the country. And some of us, as you understand, some institutions would not be as developed as the others, and that is historical. In our case in South Africa, but generally in the world also, that is what is happening, that some institutions are not as equal, if I can put it like that. And the DHET, as I said, is set to develop the implementation strategy. And what we want to have in that is that the national approach or approaches, including the involvement of other government departments and AISA, as indicated already, we're doing the study with AISA, the rollout of national implementation plan, the monitoring, the reporting. This is the responsibility that we will be taking after we have developed the strategy, that we will advocate for the national approach. We will then roll out the implementation with timelines, and then we'll monitor the implementation because we want to improve. We want to make sure that everyone is on board. And of course, we will do so by having reporting annually at least by all the institutions. And the DHET will seek to clearly articulate national strategy to enhance higher education internationalization and give guidance to the higher education system for fulfillment of the policy framework. And originally, as I have indicated, this is what we had planned that we would be having already by now, but as indicated earlier, the ethical clearances were a problem. So that was the DHET involvement. But broadly, in terms of government, again, I don't want to repeat what Mr. Mbele has said already. Various government departments have got different roles of making sure that our higher education system is international, and indeed the system is internationalized. And if you look at the last bullet there, we're counting the number of government departments. For example, the Department of Home Affairs, that's where Mr. Mbele comes from. The Department of Science and Innovation, used to be called DST, Science and Technology. Department of International Relations and Cooperation, us, DHET, Department of Trade and Industry, and the Department of Labor. As indeed is the case that we are not only looking at the students, we are also looking at the workers, the academics who come to work in South Africa, the researchers who would want to come and work in South Africa, and therefore the facilitation by government to make sure that we have full internationalization of our education system. I will provide these slides, colleagues, so please don't worry about me skipping some of these points. I just want to get to what Mr. Mbele said, is if you had looked at my slide, this is the last slide, and just to raise an issue of concern, this comes after the subheading of concerns, an issue of concern as to what is happening with the enrollments in our higher education system. You spoke about the protocol on higher education and training, that is the SADC protocol, Southern African Development Cooperation Protocol, and it covers all the 15 countries of Southern Africa, where we should reserve 10%, each country should, 5%, each country should reserve 5% to admit students from the fellow countries or member states of SADC. We have been doing well for a number of years. I've just taken here the last 7 or so years, starting with 2013, you will see that we had 7.45% of foreign students. And then it goes up to 2020, and as you can see, it's been declining. And this is the latest data we have of 2020. In fact, I've requested 2021 because it was still going through audit. And I think it must have just been cleared in the past week or so. So this is what we have as latest. I've already had sight of private higher education institution numbers and foreign students in those private institutions. And again, I've observed that there has been that drop. So this is a matter of concern. We won't be able to fulfill internationalization if we are going to be looking at ourselves only. And also we need to understand what causes this decline in international student numbers in their enrollments at our institutions. I don't need to motivate it further, as Mr. Mbele has actually eloquently put it in terms of, as much as I don't believe in ratings, in rankings, but you know, what impression it gives to the world out there. This is not about COVID. Indeed, I do understand that we are speaking here as a matter of addressing post-COVID. But if you're looking at the fact that the decline has been starting or carried through from 2013 to current, then maybe things will be worse when we are looking at the numbers post-COVID. So what do we do? Yes, we do have a chapter in the national policy on internationalization at home, but internationalization at home should be applied in certain circumstances. It's not ordinary internationalization in and of itself, but it's an internationalization of special circumstances. So we need to find a way, again, going back to what has been normal, definitely pre-COVID, but also to promote what we have been having, and in order to be able to sustain the numbers that we've been having of international students at our institutions. So I will leave it there, Chair, and certainly, as I have promised, you will get the slides, and indeed I hope I can answer some of the questions that will be asked in our discussion session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can we please give him a round of applause for that? Thank you, Chief Mabizela. I didn't know you were chief, but it's good to know. And one thing I just want to say is that thank you to all the panels. Unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to have Mr. Eric Apelgren from the municipality, but it gives us more time for us to discuss. And I did mention earlier that you should just pack your questions for now so that we can be able to answer it. Since we've been so good in time, I just want to leave the next 10 minutes for questions only. And please, just, I think, signify by raising your hand. And I don't know if there will be someone to assist with the mic to thank you. You see, we're so efficient here. It's just amazing. We have two lovely ladies who would bring the mic to you. So just raise your hand and you can ask about anything based on any of our three panelists have spoken about earlier. Is there anybody ready to have a question? Yes, we have a hand here, please. Can you? Prof. Please introduce yourself first and let us know who you are, and please ask your question. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the panelists. I'm Professor Vivian Ojong. I'm the Dean and Head of School of Social Sciences at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. My question, thank you so much for that presentation. I'm grateful to the chief from higher education. My question is for you from Home Affairs. We are challenged with the visa processes for our postdocs.
Some of the challenges, obviously, is the ripple effect of the time that we had closed our operations for some time during COVID. And then later what then happened, people, when we started to ease up, our officials were coming on rotation to work. And then eventually what was happening was that because of social distancing, we could not have all the officials 100% at work, but we were open for applications in our centers. So the applications kept on coming in. So we currently have quite a high number of delayed applications that we are going through. What we have done in the last 2 weeks, going back to last month, is that we sent a call to the International Education Association of South Africa, IESA, which is a platform that we use to communicate with universities. We have started a program at the Department of Home Affairs on the 26th of September. It's called the Backlog Eradication Program. So we are trying to process all the delayed applications. And what we have done is that we are first giving priority to all applications that come from universities, but in particular the study visas, because we know the challenges around that. December is approaching. Most of the students will be going back home, and what might happen is that some of them, their visas will expire when they are back home, and they might have a difficulty coming back. So we're trying to clear all the university applications before the end of December so that everyone who has applied has received their outcomes. We've also been receiving through IESA, the different universities, sending us lists of applications that are pending from abroad and locally, and we are going through that. We normally advise that every international student or an international worker, firstly the ones that are based in South Africa that are already in the institutions, when they are struggling to get their outcome, they need to communicate that through their international office here on campus, and then that international office takes it through IESA, and then it comes through to us so that then we process it. So I would advise that for those cases, madam, that you've mentioned, even those that are abroad, people who have applied and you have the application still pending, please send them through IESA, and it will eventually come through to me, and then I can communicate to the mission abroad to process them. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Chief Mabizela, please, you can answer.
Thank you so much, Prof. Yes, I've got the questions. Let me start with the second one on whether the department does provide support to students. And in fact, this is the first one. No, Prof, not as government. We don't provide that support outside of our programs. We've got some programs that we facilitate. By that I mean, for example, that we would have a partnership as government, let's say with the government of Netherlands, where there would be exchange of students, some coming to South Africa and some going outside to the Netherlands. Now, then when is that type of a program that is government to government, then there is facilitation that's done by the Department of Higher Education and Training. We've got a number of those across the world, and I don't recall any, for instance, that is with the government of the Netherlands. So we would then facilitate, but then what happens is that the host institution takes over. What the department does is to facilitate that exchange, but then the host institution where the students are received then would take over and make sure that the students are comfortable and that they are able to do the studies they are intended or have intention of conducting while in South Africa. And then the issue of online, this is one of the long challenge that we've been having in the country. It's still not regulated, but this is what we do though, because we're not regulating it directly. What we do though is that what South Africa recognizes are qualifications that are accredited by the Council on Higher Education, which is a South African Higher Education Qualifications Authority, or an accrediting body of higher education qualifications. Yes, there's also South African Qualifications Authority on the other side. So what we then do is that only programs that are accredited by the CHE, for short, that are recognized. So if it's not accredited by the CHE, then the student who does that qualification or obtains that qualification will then struggle to make use of that qualification once it's once it's complete. So that is the only way we are regulating it. And so, you know, students who come across these qualifications or studies online just need to make sure, that's the message we send to the institutions, send on our website and so on, that one, the institution is recognized, at least in its country of origin, and then secondly, that the qualifications will be cleared by the South African Qualifications Authority once obtained. Otherwise, the CHE, the Council on Higher Education, is only responsible for the qualifications that are offered within the country, within South Africa. So it's a bit convoluted, but that is how we are regulating the online. And the number of cases of students who have been duped, as it were, and did qualifications that are not accredited, even in the home country of the institution, the number of complaints has been declining over years, which then is to some extent an indication to us that the word is going out there that the potential students I'm sorry about that. That the potential students do take care before they register for those. Yeah.
That's quite unfortunate.
I have answered. I can still go ahead and take more questions, certainly. But yes, I hope you heard me despite that echo. Thank you.
Thank you. I would take one more question, please. Is there anybody? Yes, there's a question. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. I have one question. Mr. Mpele, as you know, that government issued a blanket approach to assist students with expired visas. But some students decided to exit the country, visit their home countries, and they were declared undesirable. I know they were not supposed to exit the country. Is there a way that we can assist them because they still need to come back and complete their studies?
Before you answer that question, we need to recognize you, as they say in Parliament. Can you please tell us who you are, please?
Oh, sorry. My name is Nombuso Mjali. I work for UKZN International Office.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thanks very much for that question, Nombuso. The declaration of a person as undesirable actually comes from the fact that the person would have overstayed the validity of their visas. So, for instance, if your visa expires today and you do not depart the country, if you go out of the country a few days later or a month later, when you scan your passport on exit at the airport or whatever port of exit, the system will pick up that you have overstayed your period of validity, and then it declares you undesirable, meaning that you will not be able to come back for a particular period of time. Now, what happens is that because some students have applied for visas or renewal of their visas and they have not received them back, the Minister of Home Affairs issued a concession that actually gives them validity up until March 2023. But the concession itself, because it is a written concession, it does not talk to what happens in the system. The system still recognizes their visas as having expired. So what they do, Nombuso, is that on exit, when they are declared undesirable, there is a form that they are given with the details of where they could send an email to indicate that they have a pending application, and as soon as we receive that representation from them, then the status of undesirability is overturned and they are issued a letter that allows them to come back. So the email that they can send it to is called the overstay appeals at dha.gov.za. Overstay appeals is one word, and that's how we assisted them. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Just to keep things balanced, I would like to ask one question to Dr. Lengsfeld. I mean, she's been patient. She's actually in transit, and it would be good to actually get her thoughts on one question that I do have for her when it comes to this issue of internationalization. Dr. Lengsfeld, just a quick question, because when we talk about partnerships between, should I say, first world country universities and universities in the third world, there's that concern, or should I say perception, which comes in the place that the knowledge is usually coming in one direction, that and almost in the point of maybe imposing, because more of the financial clout and the global clout comes from the first world universities. I just want to know, do you have any experience in your own personal capacity to say that there has been knowledge exchange, especially from South Africa or from the third world countries, which is being implemented in the first world countries?
I think it's absolutely right that we in the first world seem to have this bizarre opinion of ourselves. I spent the last 2 days touring every major research lab on UKZN with the graciousness of all the scientists, and it is world-class, top-notch. I mean, there is clear places where what's happening in South Africa is changing the world. Let's just look at CRISA, AIDS Research Center, where they're discovering that women are the key place to stop transition of AIDS. that they've discovered that AIDS and tuberculosis are co-infections that they, in their repository, have identified a potential antibody. That's just one place, one snippet from a 90-minute discussion with their scientists of where I can concretely say the world has been affected by the brilliance of South Africa. And I think there's so many more places. The key to partnership is to recognize that you can deeply learn from each other, both scientifically and culturally, and you can inspire each other to not only look at the problems different, but look for solutions different. I'm overwhelmed and absolutely on board with my collaborations from the University of Denver to UKZN in the future. And I'm sorry that I had to be at an airport today and I wasn't there in person, but I so want to be there and we're going to have a great time.
Thank you so much for that. That is quite reassuring to hear that from you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, all protocols observed, we do have our fourth panelist here. Inclined to give him some punitive measures because he's very late. Yes, you know, I have to put on my academic hat here to what we tell to students who are late. But I shall be calm because in the spirit of internationalism, we must accept people in different forms. And I'm just joking. We know he's very busy. He's a politician, in quotes, so you know how politicians say, do as I say, but not as I do. But you are welcome, Mr. Eric Apelgren. We do know that you had a previous meeting before you could join us today. I have already introduced you in absentia, but I am going to give you some time to talk to us, which is really basically the municipal's impact or influence when it comes to what it deals with what we're talking about or what we're gathered here today, which is the internationalism of universities, and also where does the municipality's part play in this? So I believe you have a presentation. So I will please hand over the mic to you, and or would you like to come here, sir, so that everybody can see you?
Is there a machine to move the slides?
No, this is not the municipality, sir. This is the university. But you are welcome. Please let us give him a round of applause so that he can feel comfortable and present. And may I add, you only have 1 minute for your punishment to talk.
It's on. Okay. Thank you, Program Director. But I just wanted to be realistic. How many minutes do I have? I can... 2. But do we need these lights on? Because I think my slides work better with those lights off, if that's possible. Yeah, just to say my apologies. I was with the mayor and the German ambassador this morning, and I had to be there because I'm responsible for it. So just to say quickly, as you can see, I'm on my mother's side, I'm half Zulu, half English, and my father is half Zulu, half Swedish, and you mix all that up, you get the Ethiopian. See, I look Ethiopian. I think that's what they made me responsible for international relations in the municipality. And I'm Catholic, and I'm the 9th child in a family of 12. So I think that makes my... anyway, so let's just go on to the next slide. Thank you for the partnership, and I want to talk about this. This is the topic. Let's go to the next slide. Just to say, our vision is to be Africa's most caring and livable city, and I think that's the journey that we as a city would like to do with the university. And we also, by 2050, want to be a leading smart port city, because we are a port, and we want to be just, safe, resilient, socially cohesive, and culturally expressive, and that's what we want to produce out of this university. Next slide. Just to say, that is a slide that says where we are. Whenever I see this picture, it reminds me that all the water, when the rain comes and the rivers come, they want to go to the ocean. And when there's too much, it kills us, you know, and the floods of this year was tragic. Let's go to the next slide. So that's a map of the region, of the municipality. Just go to the next slide. And this is a very important slide. And I think, you know, we just had a delegation from South Sudan, and there's a lot of countries that are trying to fuse traditional authority systems with current kind of Western style democracy, constitutional democracies. So this, in our city, we have 19 traditional leaders, and the land issues between traditional authority and South Africa, so to speak, is a challenge. And we need to find ways of how do we do planning, how do we make sure that people, whether you're in a traditional authority land or you're on in the CBDs, you are getting wall-to-wall municipal services. Let's go to the next slide. So we have 100 kilometers of coastline, 80 major rivers. We have the bay, we have subtropical, we 57. I mean, I think all of you know this. Let's go on to the next slide. And just some very important facts and figures. We have 222 elected councillors, and we have 29,000 staff, 25,000 are full-time. We are almost 4 million people now. We have a growth rate of 1.4, and we are 68% rural. And I think that a lot of the international exchanges that I will do, I would really like to work with the university to say, when we do those exchanges, the whole issue of rural development and integration of rural and urban is something that we've really got to, and even to the point where we help students, your postgraduate students want to go abroad, or postgrad, and we want to encourage postgraduate students to come here to really share knowledge. And those are the kinds of things we really like to work strongly with you on. And as you know, we are a leading tourist destination, but our current sewage challenges are really knocking that. People don't want to come to a dirty beach, and the quality of water issues. We have a very good credit rating. The city has a very good credit rating, and we have a very good system of collecting money, but we have not a very good system of spending it. And that's the thing that we need: more better accountants and procurement officers. And my stress in the city at the moment is that our procurement system is geared for corruption, and it's not geared for efficiency. And we need to find ways of dealing with that. So we have a budget of 52 billion rand. The 47 is going to operational and 5.3 for capital. We have 120,000 migrants. All Home Affairs says no, it's less than that. It's only about 50,000. But this is my estimation. And there's about 8,000 homeless people in the city. Now, my view is that that is not a crisis. We make it a crisis. 8,000 homeless people we can take care of, we can deal with. You know, if all spheres of government work together, and we dealt with integration, including migrants, particularly from our continent. Unemployment is sitting at 40%, and that is a huge time bomb, and it exacerbates social instability and conflict. And we are 2,556 square kilometers of the region. If we can just go to the next slide. We are a multi-party democracy now. We are a coalition government. And I'm saying all the students of political science and your professors and all the academics, you got to learn how to teach people how to cope in a coalition government. That's the future. Right now. Might change later, but right now, all cities, and I'm predicting that after the next national and provincial election, we'll have to have coalition governments. And it's not easy. But Germany, Italy, many countries around the world are running on coalition governments. Actually, Italy, for 4 years, had no government. The civil servants ran the country because the coalitions couldn't agree on who should be the leaders. So, so coalition government is very important. Next slide. So these are the challenges that we face. We had COVID. The 2 years of COVID were really tragic. The vaccine hesitancy, and I still encourage people to get vaccinated. COVID is not gone. It's still with us. There's 3 provinces where there's a sudden spike in infection, so beware. The xenophobic violence and displacement of local foreign nationals was terrible, and we've got to have social cohesion ideas to deal with that. The floods, we didn't expect, you know, it was one day. Well, we had a few days of rain, but one day where the bulk of the people died at 3:30 in the morning. And then we had the 7 days of madness in July of last year, where the big looters told the small looters, go and loot and we will be a better country. And those few big looters are not in jail yet, which is very sad. And all the small looters, the millions of people, the thousands of, sorry, not million, thousands of people that were stealing stuff, they're all starving, they're unemployed, they are really further stressed right now as we speak. So the context, oops. Did it disappear? No, I don't think it's load shedding. I think it's computer shedding. Yeah, so what I was going to be saying there, one of the last captures there is that, you know, all these things have all these traumatic things have happened, but I think there's a new idea that we're working on. I mean, it's not my idea. I've picked it up. It's a word called Kwazilians. It's a combination of the people of KwaZulu-Natal being resilient. And I think, you know, it's resilient in an emotional sense and a physical sense and a material sense. And I just think that there's a lot of mental health issues that we need to confront. I mean, I firmly believe that the issue of gender-based violence, a lot of men have mental health issues, which they deny and they don't know how to cope with, and they don't go for therapy. And I think mental health, all the trauma that we've experienced has been an issue. But just to say, I mean, I'll just continue. I know the script. So one of the big things that I talk about is the issue of the port city. And there's a lot of issues that are coming up in the port. Our port was number 1 on the continent. It's number 3 now, which is sad. We need to find ways of making sure that we have the best minds and ideas to improve the efficiency of our port. And the university must do that, and even have international cooperation so that your studies need to look at good practice, not just here in KZN. When you study in KZN, we must find ways of getting you to do field trips outside. I mean, I know some people who have done theses on, is that my right word? Thesis. Yeah. On the issue of Metropolis, the Durban trade port. If you build an airport and you think you can rely on passengers to make that airport succeed, you're going to fail. An airport succeeds if it's a metropolis, meaning an airport city, where you have trading, you have passengers, you have cargo, you even have processing facilities, and you have agri-processing, agri-zones in that. So Durban Trade Port, the success of it right now is that Emirates, Qatar, those are the 2 main airlines that take stuff into the European Union market and further on to United Airlines now is operating, but mainly from Joburg. But the Metropolis is an important, have we got our thing back? No, okay. So, no, that's fine. Yeah, so the airport is something that's very important. As I said, with agriculture, it's something very important. But now coming to this, we have 18 sister cities. My day job, that's what I really do. There are 18 sister cities, right? On our continent, there's Oran in Algeria, Alexandria in Egypt, and the bulk of these are port cities. Libreville in Gabon, Mombasa in Kenya, Maputo in Mozambique, Bulawayo in Zimbabwe, and that's on the continent, right? Those are cities on the continent, and the bulk of them are port cities. In the United States, it's Los Angeles, Chicago, and New Orleans, right? And we would like to say, how can we even partner the universities in those cities with the University of KZN? So students can get access to those institutions, young people from there and academics can come and have access to UKZN. So in the United States, those are the 3 cities. In Brazil, it's the city of Curitiba. And Curitiba is the city that the model of the integrated rapid public transport system that South Africa is using for Go Durban, for the Rapid Rail Via in Johannesburg, My City program in Cape Town, all those integrated public transport systems came from that city in South America. In China, the city of Guangzhou, and in Europe, we have the port city of Rotterdam, the port city of Bremen, the port city of Nantes, and Leeds in the United Kingdom, which is not a port city. Those are our sister cities in Europe, and they're quite vibrant, and the ones with the German colleagues is very strong on climate change. And I think that I would like to encourage, and please use my office, to leverage financial resources for students and for postgraduate academics to get scholarship and bursary, even to study here and have exchanges with European colleagues who are also grappling. I mean, right now, there's load shedding coming in the UK as we speak. In France, the president has said at night they must switch off all the streetlights because the war in Ukraine and Russia, which I think should have never happened. Russia, I mean, like, you can't be a big brother and go and bully small countries, you know, I mean, it's just, anyway, but that's another story for another day. So, but the energy crisis in Europe is a clear example. Now what's happening is that Germany and France are buying huge amounts of coal from Mpumalanga in the province up not far from us. And the road between Mpumalanga and Richards Bay is becoming a nightmare because trucks are moving large volumes of high-grade coal, which is in huge demand, right, through the port of Richards Bay. So, but it's also, it's setting us back on the climate change agenda because we shouldn't be using coal, right? We should be using more sun, wind, energy, and that's another big thing that our sister city corporation is looking at. How do we, sorry, you're going to need to just take time out when I need to stop, okay? Okay. Oh, okay, sorry, you're right. Okay, so, yeah, so just, I think on my closing issue, I would really like to build further on, I mean, the slide presentation I got there is quite detailed, and I'd like to leave it with the colleagues here, and please, it's not a secret, there are some slides that you really need to look at, and I'll be happy to engage beyond this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir, with Mr. Eric Apelgren. I wasn't joking about shutting down the internet if you guys talk too long. So you've seen that happen. But thank you so much, Eric. And we do know and appreciate that the information that you've given us and what you've talked to us is really vital. And I think what we can do, you can further engage with him in lunch or during the break since our time has been spent. I would say we're just within time, so thank you all for listening. I want to say thanks to every member of the panel, even though the ones are virtual, Mr. Mbele, Eric Apelgren, Dr. Lengsfeld, and also Chief Mabizela. I also want to thank everybody that the technical team for trying to get this thing back online. In the midst of everything that we've done, I think we've had a good session, and I hope you enjoyed this journey and it has been informative. So I thank you all. Have a good break. I believe we're going on break. I am informed. And so you can have a break and we'll meet later in the day. Thank you. Have a good day.